The evening had started off just like any other. Elena stood in the kitchen, softly humming as she prepared her usual herbal tea. Meanwhile, I was seated at the dining table, casually flipping through some architectural blueprints for a potential project. Everything felt routine, quiet, reassuring, and familiar. But the moment she spoke, that comforting sense of normalcy shattered. "Adam, I need to talk to you," she said. Her voice carried a weight I hadn't heard in years, not since the day we lost her mother. I glanced up, mildly curious but not yet worried. "Of course," I responded, placing the papers aside. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her fingers curling around the edge of the counter. "I've been thinking about us. About our marriage." A knot tightened in my stomach. "All right," I replied cautiously, keeping my tone even. "What about it?" Elena moved closer but avoided meeting my eyes. "I feel like we're stuck in a loop. Everything is so expected. There's no spark anymore." "Expected?" I echoed, trying to keep any sharpness out of my voice. "Elena, what are you trying to say?" When her eyes finally met mine, the raw emotion in them struck me hard. "I want to experience something different, Adam. Something new," she admitted. The air felt heavier, her words lingering like fog. "Something different?" I asked, my voice tightening. "What exactly does that mean?" Looking away again, she spoke softly. I want to open our marriage." The room tilted, and I instinctively gripped the table to steady myself, overwhelmed by what she had just confessed. "You think that's the answer?" I said, my voice rising even though I was trying to remain composed. "Elena, do you realize what you're suggesting?" "I know how it sounds," she said quickly. "But this isn't about you or even about us. It's about me. There's something missing inside, and I need to find it." I stared at her, heart pounding in disbelief. "And you believe the way to find whatever this is through other men?" "That's not the whole point," she said, voice trembling. "It's more about figuring out who I am beyond this marriage." My mind reeled. We had spent 25 years building a life together, raising 2 daughters, creating memories. And now she wanted to throw it all into question? "Elena, we've been through tough times before. We've always made it through. Why didn't you talk to me about this earlier?" She let out a long sigh, full of emotion. "Because I didn't know how. And honestly, I was scared of how you'd take it." "Well, your instincts were right," I snapped, standing up abruptly. "Because this is beyond reason. Do you understand what you're asking of me?" "I'm not asking," she said, her voice now steady. "I'm telling you what I need." Those words cut deeper than anything else. This wasn't a conversation or a mutual decision. It was her declaration, one that didn't include me. Shaking my head, I tried to collect myself. "I can't do this," I finally said. "If that's truly what you need, then I'm not the right partner for you." "Please don't say that," she whispered, stepping toward me. "I love you, Adam. I don't want to lose you. But I need more." "More?" I repeated bitterly. "What else could you possibly need?" She had no response. The silence between us felt suffocating. For the first time in all our years together, I felt completely out of place in my own home. That night, sleep escaped me. Her words circled in my mind endlessly, refusing to fade. By the time dawn broke, I had made up my mind. I packed a bag, told her I needed some space, and drove off to the lakeside property we owned. I didn't say a word to Chloe or Rachel. I knew I wouldn't be able to explain without breaking down. Mexico hadn't been part of any long-term plan. Initially, it was just supposed to be the next step, a brief escape. But the moment I arrived in San Diego, something shifted. The air felt different, gentler. The lake shimmered under the sun like glass, and life there moved at a peaceful pace that contrasted sharply with the chaos I'd left behind. At first, I did nothing but simply exist. I would spend hours just watching the lake, thoughts spiraling around questions that had no answers. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Was it my failure or hers? Had I missed the signs? I tortured myself with these questions until one day, I understood that searching for answers was only making things worse. I wasn't healing. I was just reopening wounds. So, for the first time in what felt like forever, I made a choice for myself. I stopped obsessing over the past and focused on the present. I purchased a modest place, just a small house, its paint faded and the dock worn down. But it was mine. I threw myself into restoring it. The work gave me something solid to hold on to, something I could control when everything else had fallen apart. I rebuilt the dock, repainted the walls, and even began crafting handmade furniture in a little woodworking shop I set up in the garage. Every completed project felt like a step forward, a way to reclaim the person I had once been. The people in town were welcoming. though they kept a respectful distance. It was as if they sensed I wasn't quite ready to open up. The one exception was Luis, the older gentleman who ran a small bait shop near the edge of the lake. He warmed up to me almost instantly, often dropping by to see how I was doing. There was something about Luis's way of speaking, like each sentence held a joke wrapped around a deeper truth. His stories about life in San Lego slowly helped me come out of the emotional fog I'd been stuck in. He spoke of the town's lively festivals, the infectious rhythms of local music, the rich flavors of traditional food, and the tapestry of people who had come to call this place home. After months of feeling emotionally numb, I found a spark beginning to flicker inside me again. It was curiosity. One evening, Luis invited me out for dinner at a cozy little restaurant run by a local family. That night, I met Sophia. She was unlike anyone I'd come across before, elegant and self-assured, yet there was a quiet resilience about her that naturally drew people in. Her thick, dark hair held strands of gray, and her amber eyes carried a depth that seemed to peer right through my defenses. She mentioned that she ran a pharmaceutical company, distributing medicine to hospitals and clinics in the area, but she spoke about it like it was just another facet of her life, not something that defined her entirely. We talked for hours, long after Luis had drifted off to join a card game with his friends. I opened up to her, shared stories about my daughters, my work, and even cautiously spoke about Elena. Sophia listened without interruption, her eyes steady, her presence grounding. When I asked about her own life, she shared quietly about her husband, who had passed away in a tragic factory explosion several years ago. He had been her world, she said with a gentle voice. But life, she added, continues, and you learn to carry the weight it leaves behind. What left an impression wasn't just her story, it was how she told it. It was clear she truly understood what it meant to lose everything and still wake up each day willing to begin again. By the time I walked out of the restaurant that night, I carried something I hadn't felt in a long while: hope. Sophia and I began seeing more of each other, though it started with simple outings. She invited me to a local festival, and I couldn't help but be swept up in the vibrant energy of the celebration. The streets pulsed with music, the scent of grilled food filled the air, and people danced freely. For the first time in years, I let myself be present. When I clumsily joined a traditional dance, Sophia laughed, her hand clasped warmly in mine, and I felt the joy of simply being close to someone again. Her daughter, Maya, was every bit as unforgettable. At 14, she was full of energy, quick-witted, and effortlessly charming. She reminded me so much of Chloe at that age. She immediately took a liking to me, calling me Senior Fix-It after noticing the repairs I had made around my place. She loved hearing about my woodworking projects, and soon she talked me into helping her build a treehouse in Sophia's backyard. Her laughter was contagious, and time with her helped me reconnect with a part of myself I had buried long ago. But as I grew closer to Sophia and Maya, the past began to stir. Elena started reaching out more often, her messages swinging between heartfelt apologies and defensive explanations. In one voicemail, she said she missed me. She admitted to making a mistake and asked if we could try to make things right again. I didn't know what to say. A part of me wanted to lay bare the pain she had caused, to make her confront the impact of her choices. But another part of me just felt worn out. I was tired of the back and forth, tired of constantly living in the past when the present was finally offering a way forward. Sophia seemed to pick up on my inner struggle, though she never pushed. Instead, she simply stood by me, offering quiet encouragement. Her presence reminded me that healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about choosing to keep moving forward despite it. One evening, as we sat watching the lake catch the colors of the setting sun, she turned to me and said gently, "You don't have to figure it all out right now, Adam. Just take the next step." I wasn't sure what that next step looked like, but I knew with certainty that I wanted her to be part of it. And for the first time in many months, that thought alone felt like enough. Sophia and Maya slowly became a constant in my life, a presence I hadn't anticipated but soon found I couldn't imagine being without. What began as casual get-togethers and shared moments of laughter gradually evolved into something much deeper, something I hadn't dared to believe was possible after what happened with Elena. Sophia brought a sense of calm and strength into my life. She was passionate but composed, gentle yet unwavering. With her, the days didn't feel like something to merely survive. They felt like something worth embracing. Maya added her own kind of brightness. Her humor and lively energy reminded me so much of Chloe when she was her age. She had a way of drawing me into her world, whether we were sketching ideas for the treehouse or joking about my clumsy attempts at speaking Spanish. Being with her felt completely natural, like we had known each other far longer than we actually had. One sunny afternoon, just after we'd finished putting the last nail in the treehouse, Maya turned to me with a sly smile and said, "You know, Senor Fix-It, I think you'd make a really great dad." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I thought of Chloe and Rachel, of the many ways I'd felt I'd let them down through the chaos that followed Elena's betrayal. I couldn't help but wonder, was there room to be the kind of father Maya needed without losing sight of the daughters I already had? I didn't know the right answer then, but Maya's unwavering faith in me sparked something, the belief that maybe I could try. My connection with Sophia had started shifting into something deeper than friendship, even though neither of us had dared to label it. We shared quiet late-night talks by the lake, her fingers occasionally grazing mine in gentle, electric moments. The silences between us felt comforting rather than awkward, like we spoke a silent language only we understood. I wanted to open up to her, to lay my feelings bare, but the emotional wounds Elena left behind still echoed inside me. I kept asking myself, could I risk opening my heart again? Could I believe that Sophia wouldn't leave me like Elena once did? All those questions weighed even heavier when Elena appeared unexpectedly at the lake house. It was Christmas, and I'd been planning a peaceful celebration with Chloe and Rachel. But instead of festive calm, I was met with Elena on the doorstep, her face etched with sorrow and desperation. Before I could say anything, she looked at me and said she needed to see me and the girls. Her arrival upended the holiday. Chloe flat out refused to stay in the same room with her, while Rachel tried, somewhat unsuccessfully, to keep the peace. Ever the voice of reason, Sophia urged me to give Elena a chance to explain, but I wasn't sure I wanted to hear whatever she had to say. Eventually, during dinner, Elena's composure broke. Tears welled in her eyes as she admitted, voice trembling, that she'd made a terrible choice. She confessed to chasing something she thought she needed, only to realize she had shattered the life we had built together. She said she missed it all, missed me, missed us. Hearing her didn't ignite forgiveness or rekindle old feelings, but it brought a deep, aching sadness. This was the woman I had once shared everything with, the mother of my children, now reduced to someone lost and remorseful. Yet, her regret couldn't undo the past or erase how she had torn our family apart. I met her eyes and replied, calm but resolute. I told her I didn't know what outcome she had expected from her visit, but I couldn't go backward. I had begun to move forward. She looked toward Sophia, then asked quietly, with her. I didn't hesitate when I responded, yes, with her. Elena's eyes shimmered with tears. For a moment, I thought she might say something cruel, but instead, she simply nodded, shoulders sinking under invisible weight. I just had to try, she whispered. As difficult as her visit was, it gave me a sense of finality I hadn't known I needed. After she left, I turned to Sophia, who had watched everything unfold from a quiet corner. I thanked her. When she asked what for, I told her it was for simply being there for understanding. She offered a soft, bittersweet smile and said, Adam, I understand what it feels like to lose someone you imagined forever with. And I know what it's like to find someone new. Don't rush, but don't let fear be the reason you hold back. Her words lingered in my mind long after. I realized I didn't want fear to be the thing that kept me from a new beginning, not with Sophia, not with Maya. So one starlit evening by the lake, I reached out and held Sophia's hand. My voice was quiet, but full of intention. Sophia, I can't promise I'll be everything you deserve, I said, but I'd really like the chance to try. She turned to me with bright eyes and answered, that's all I would ever want. Everything changed from that moment on. We stopped avoiding our emotions and allowed ourselves to be open and real. Sophia brought me into her world, introduced me to the people and places that shaped her. I, in turn, let her see the layers of my own history, my fears, my aspirations. Maya, always bursting with energy, decided I was officially part of their family. Once she made that decision, there was no going back. Still, Elena's shadow stretched across our lives. Chloe refused to forgive her, and Rachel, always the one trying to bring balance, ended up caught in between. Sophia, with her grounded wisdom, reminded me that the girls had to work out their own paths with their mother. You can't mend this for them, Adam, she told me gently. All you can do is be present. And she was right. She usually was. One evening, standing by the lake as the sunset spilled golden and crimson across the water, I felt the weight that had once anchored me begin to lift. The pain Elena caused hadn't vanished, but it no longer controlled my life. In its place, I had discovered something new, something worth holding on to. And for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. The night I decided to propose to Sophia was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I'd ever had. It wasn't just about the proposal itself, it was everything that came with it. Choosing Sophia meant finally letting go of the last fragments of what I had once shared with Elena. It meant stepping fully into a future I hadn't envisioned when I first came to San Diego. It meant believing in the possibility of love again. I paced the house for what felt like hours, rehearsing what I might say, but the words all felt too small. How could I explain how much Sophia and Maya meant to me? How could I put into words that they had helped me feel alive again? Eventually, I decided to trust my heart and let it speak for me. The following morning, I drove to a small local jewelry shop that Louise had mentioned. It was tucked away on a quiet side street, but inside was a stunning array of stones. One in particular caught my eye, a fiery opal, glowing with vivid hues of orange and red that seemed to flicker like flames. I looked at the jeweler and said, "This one. It's perfect." With Maya's help, I brought the final design to life. Her energy was infectious, lighting up the room as she looked over the plans. "Mom's going to absolutely love it," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Then she added with playful confidence, "And if she doesn't, well, I'll make sure she changes her mind." Her certainty made me laugh, and deep down, I felt grateful for her constant encouragement. "Let's just hope it doesn't come to that," I replied with a grin. Sophia and I were growing closer by the day. Our routines were beginning to blend in ways that felt both natural and deeply significant. She often joined me on the lake for fishing, her laughter echoing across the water as she poked fun at my mediocre catches. In return, I found myself attending local gatherings with her, watching in quiet admiration as she gracefully moved through conversations, lighting up the space with her presence. Yet, even as our bond deepened, I could sense a hesitance in her, one she rarely allowed to surface. Strong and composed as always, Sophia was carrying something heavy, something she hadn't shared. One quiet evening, as we sat by the fireplace in her living room, she finally opened up. "There's something important you need to know," she said quietly, her voice firm but subdued. "When my husband died, it wasn't just tragic. It became a scandal." Her gaze dropped to the glass in her hand, fingers lightly skimming its edge. "He worked for a petrochemical company. After he passed, accusations came to light: corruption, bribes, environmental cover-ups. I've spent years trying to clear his name, but I don't even know if he was innocent." I sat there, taken aback. "What kind of corruption?" I asked softly. "Bribery. Environmental violations," she answered, eyes avoiding mine. The vulnerability in her voice was striking. For a brief moment, I felt that old instinct, the urge to pull away, to shield myself from something that might hurt. But then I looked at her, really looked, and realized it didn't matter. Her past wasn't what defined her. What mattered was who she was now, the woman who had stood beside me through so much. "Sophia," I said, gently reaching for her hand. "Whatever happened before, it doesn't change how I feel about you. If this is something you're still carrying, let me share the weight. We'll face it together." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she gave a small nod, squeezing my hand tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. The night of the proposal felt surreal, like I was a teenager again, nervously preparing for a first date. I chose the gazebo by the river, Sophia's favorite spot. With Maya's help, we transformed it into something magical, draping it in soft lights and surrounding it with flickering candles. When Sophia arrived, her expression shifted from curiosity to amazement. "Adam," she breathed, stepping inside the glowing space. "It's beautiful. What's going on?" I took a deep breath and opened the small velvet box in my hand. "You?" I said simply. Her eyes grew wide as I knelt before her and revealed the ring, a fiery opal that shimmered in the candlelight. "Sophia," I began, voice trembling slightly, "you brought light back into my world at a time I thought it was gone forever. You and Maya have given me something I never thought I'd have again, a family. I love you, Sophia. Will you marry me?" She didn't speak right away. Instead, she covered her mouth with her hands as tears streamed down her face. Then she dropped to her knees, wrapping her arms around my neck. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. The days that followed were filled with celebration and joyful chaos. Maya could barely contain herself. She immediately called Chloe and Rachel to share the news. To my surprise, both girls were genuinely thrilled. Chloe, who had once been unsure about Sophia, admitted that over time, she had come to respect her deeply. Rachel, always the one to bring people together, said she was looking forward to our new beginning as a family. Still, the past hadn't entirely let go. When Elena heard about the engagement, she called me in tears. "Adam, please don't do this," she pleaded. "We can fix this. We were meant to grow old together." Once, her words might have undone me. But now, they felt distant, empty. "Elena," I said gently, "you had your chance. I found something new, something real. I wish you peace, but I've moved on." She didn't argue, but the sorrow in her voice lingered long after the call ended. I knew she was in pain, but I couldn't let that define my future. Sophia and Maya were my family now, and I wasn't going to jeopardize that by clinging to what was lost. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, everything felt like a dream. For so long, I had convinced myself that true love wasn't in the cards for me anymore. And yet, here I was, preparing to marry a woman who had healed me in ways I never thought possible. Planning the ceremony was both hectic and thrilling. Maya took on the role of event coordinator with gusto, treating every detail like it was her personal mission. Her joy was contagious, and seeing her take such pride in the celebration reminded me how much she meant to me, not just as Sophia's daughter, but as someone I now saw as my own. Chloe and Rachel jumped in too, their excitement catching me off guard. Chloe, the ever-cautious one, had warmed to Sophia, appreciating her strength and calm demeanor. Rachel, with her usual optimism, said the wedding symbolized a fresh start for all of us. Their support meant more than they could ever know. 2 days before the wedding, the past came knocking quite literally. Out by the lakeside, I was fine-tuning the sound system for the upcoming ceremony when the distinct sound of a car pulling in drew my attention. As I turned around, my body tensed. Elena emerged slowly, her face uncertain, emotions flickering in her eyes, complex and unreadable. She called my name softly as she made her way toward me. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely louder than the breeze. A part of me instantly wanted to turn her away, to shield the tranquility I had fought so hard to restore. But another part, the one that still held on to the remnants of what we used to be, understood that this moment had been coming for a while. Without a word, I nodded and motioned toward a bench by the edge of the water. She sat, folding her hands tightly in her lap, a quiet nervousness radiating from her. "I heard about the wedding," she began, her voice low. "I thought I could be okay with it, but I can't let you go without saying what I've carried for a long time." "Elena," I responded with measured calm, "you know I've moved on." "I do," she said, her voice quivering. "I'm not here to change your mind. I just need to say I'm sorry. For all of it. I was thinking only of myself, Adam. I believed there was something missing in my life, but I didn't realize until too late that everything I needed was already right in front of me." Her words stirred something deep inside, a sadness not for her, but for the life we had let slip away. I took a moment before answering. "Elena," I said gently, keeping my tone steady, "what happened between us left scars. You hurt me in ways I never expected. But despite everything, I forgive you." Her eyes welled up, and a single tear slid down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't deserve it, but thank you anyway." We sat quietly after that, letting the peaceful rhythm of the lake fill the silence between us. The moment felt suspended, unburdened by the need for more words. Eventually, she rose from the bench. "I won't trouble you again," she said with a soft resolve. "I just needed to say those things. I hope you find real happiness, Adam. Truly." As she walked away, a powerful sense of relief washed over me. Her unexpected visit had offered something I hadn't realized I needed: closure. And with it, I finally felt ready to move forward, leaving that chapter of my life behind.